Good afternoon, everybody. This is episode 76 of the Sports Consiglieres Podcast. Along with me, always, is my co-host, my friend, my pal, my spear of venom for the Giants, New York Football Giants, Jerry Calla. Jerry, 76. What do you like for the number?
Jumbo
All right,
Elliott.
Jumbo Elliott. All right, good call.
Yeah.
Good call. All right. So mile high meltdown. No team in the previous 1,602 games had ever blown an 18-point lead under 6 minutes remaining. Denver scored all 33 points in the fourth quarter after the Giants defense shut them down in three quarters. And for the first time in NFL history, they gave up 33 points in the fourth quarter and for a loss. And the Giants dropped their ninth consecutive road loss, I should say. And then Denver kept their lead defending their home turf. I think they're leading the NFL. So what are your thoughts? What do you say on this supposedly victory Monday up until about 2 minutes left in the game?
Again, we sit here 1:15 on Monday, the day after the Mile High collapse, monumental collapse, and somehow or another, I am befuddled is the word I'll use, that nobody has been fired. That is the single worst loss in the regular season in franchise history. That trumps the miracle at the Meadowlands. It really does. There is a lot of blame to go around. 33 points in the fourth quarter, and somehow or another, I guess the Giants are using the Brian Cashman. It really takes a lot to get somebody fired if you're really a person of significance, because, and what I mean by that is Aaron Boone kept his job, the hitting coach, the pitching coach, but they decided to let Mike Harkey go. And now on the same line, when we're expecting somebody to be held accountable, to make a statement to the organization, to the fans, to the players, there is nothing coming out of there. And yes, you had a kicker who was inconsistent, not battle tested. Why you would, be comfortable going with him forward for an extended period of time? He went 2 of 4, on extra points. But man, there's a lot of things that were wrong in that fourth quarter. And I got to be honest, I mean, it's like physically as a fan, it really was. Sometimes the games obviously take a mental toll out of you. I sat with my son next to me after the game, probably for about 45 minutes ish. And I don't think we said a word. Because really, where do you start? Where do you start? So now, going into the season, the offensive line was a huge question mark, right? And the last few weeks, when they made the quarterback change, the offensive line has played very, very well. Dart's playing very, very well. The offense is playing very, very well. I mean, they scored, 32 points yesterday. And again, there is, it starts with it. You may start it with Shane Bowen, but Kafka is to bear some blame. And ultimately, the buck stops with Dable. I mean, it is horrific. And the obvious thing is somebody should have been fired today, point blank. I mean, if nobody gets fired today, which it doesn't look like it as we're sitting here 20 after 2, I don't know when anybody's going to get fired. And I think it would be a really good message to send. I mean, you have to hold people accountable. It's unacceptable. You just threw out a monumental number, right, of people, of the percentages. Up until yesterday, it was you should have put that one on the board. That they did everything they could to lose that game, and it was.
They dominated the game. They dominated the game. Go from extreme jubilation to go to Denver, which is not an easy place to play. Mile High Stadium. Everybody talked about their defense. They were chirping back and forth on social media, and then to lose that game in that fashion, and then I mean, I know Burns had that's been out there about him about dropping 8. I think the question came into play late in the game. How come he only rushed 3 people? He had 5 against 3. How come Dexter Lawrence and Carter were on the sidelines? That was also brought up. And then with a limping secondary, why wouldn't you put more pressure on? I mean,
Absolutely.
Nix was back there. He picked them apart, and of course, the bad penny keeps on coming back is Deontay Banks. I mean, he got burned, and they picked on Phillips and Banks. So, and then in the defensive quarter, they had no sacks, no hits, no pass breakups. So, I mean, just everything went wrong. And then on offensive side too, it's just like 3rd and 5, they're up 10. I would just run the ball. I mean, have Denver use their last timeout. I know Rex Ryan was saying that today on SportsCenter. Have them use their last timeout and then, punt the ball. You're up by 10. What
Absolutely.
happened?
Keep the clock going. Sure.
And then the other thing is too, when they had the ball and when they did the bomb to Robinson, I don't know why. I would have just kept the clock going. The clock is the enemy in that point. Why give them more opportunity, especially Sean Payton, who, if you look at Sean Payton on the sidelines, he was almost smirking. I was like, I can't believe this is going on. I mean, granted, he got the penalty, and rightly so. And that's the other thing with the penalty. Like, you mean to tell me between Dart and Scatabo, you couldn't punch that ball in where the offensive line was playing? You could have burned a down there somewhere. I know it's risky and everything else, but for 40 seconds and with the leg that the kid Lutz had, he gave him an opportunity to win the game.
Take some time off the clock. Yeah, sure.
So, I mean, there was a lot.
You knew when they scored, which was pretty much in that scenario right away. I don't think there was any Giant fan that felt any relaxation. And then when they came out and you're seeing them drop 8 people, it was like Dallas all over again. And it is, we talked about this from the beginning of the year, right? Your expectations for this year, okay? And I know I'm going to get killed for saying this. They should have won yesterday. They should have beaten New Orleans, okay? And they should have beat Dallas, right? So let's say we put Dallas aside. The New Orleans game, the turnovers, that's a game that got away from them. And yesterday, and you look at it, right? And your rookie quarterback is undefeated. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable because everybody wanted them to make this switch, and I don't think anybody expected, that Dart was going to be basically a shot of life and an infusion of positivity. And man, even with that being said, he still led you down the field. I know they got a gift penalty there, right? But he scored a touchdown. He maintained his composure when things were unraveling very quickly. And it's almost to the point where even waking up today, you scratch your head as a Giant fan and you say, wow, did yesterday really happen? It's bad football, bad coaching, okay? It's really on the coaching staff because up until that point, and this is what I don't understand sometimes in the NFL, is things are going good, right? And the Johnson touchdown off the deflection, if you will, things are going really, really good up until that point. Why change anything? Why change anything?
I know.
It's unbelievable.
If you look, Denver got a lucky break on their tip pass, and we trumped that with the tip pass with Johnson.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're outplaying them, but I think the injuries to Holland and Adebo really hurt the secondary because I think the Broncos had 7 drives, 111 yards, 0 points when Adebo was out there. When Banks came in at corner, 5 drives, 295 yards, 33 points. So there's a big drop off there. And I know things were different and everything else, but I just think that they left too much time on the clock. I would have ran the ball. I mean, 10-point lead, you got to win that game. So, I mean, you got to win that game. So, but, just breaking the game down, the multiple delay of game penalties. I mean, that's the other thing too. And then the Thibodeau offsides at 3rd and 5. So, I mean, there was a
Yep.
lot of mistakes that were made, that you can't blame on the coaching or either that. I don't know, but the delay of game penalties. And then the Burns, I know Burns was hurt. I mean, would you have called the timeout there when they made the completion to Mims when it came up and spiked the ball just to get the defense set? Because, I mean, obviously he was limping, and then they gave him another 5 yards for for the offsides penalty.
The thing is, let's tackle the first part of your statement. The coaching, to me, right? You have a rookie quarterback in a brutal environment to play in, right? It's very difficult to play there. The air, the fans, yada yada yada. Denver's always been Denver for you. Now you have a rookie quarterback. The game is tighter, right? The offensive Kafka's got to be better getting the play in sooner. He's got to be better. There's no
Yeah.
other way around. You have, and I think, and I hate to reference other people, on the show, but like Tiki Barber summed it up. He goes, there was a lot of things about the game, but what gets him hot under the collar is you put the game wrongfully in the hands of your rookie quarterback. And, them not running the ball, anytime there's a delay of game penalty, it's always the assumption on the quarterback of getting people set. You got to be better there. Kafka's got to be better there. And at some point, because I know he was lambasting him, and blasting him on the sideline, Bowen, listen, Brian Dable hired Shane Bowen, and at some point, if you didn't learn anything from the Dallas game, you're a wounded animal in your secondary, and you're rushing three guys, giving Bo Nix all day, to pick you apart. Sometimes you really just want to bang your head, against the wall as a Giant fan. And these Giant recaps have turned into like mental health sessions. Really,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
unbelievable
I
because it's just not good football, and it
I wanted
starts
to
at the top.
I wanted to open up and apologize for you because I think about a year ago or 18 months ago, I asked you to come on the podcast. And I think this is good, very good therapy for both of us. But I mean, this has been, I mean, this is the Giants have been brutal the last two seasons. And I think with Jaxson Dart, there was no design run. Like they didn't have any run pass options. There's no creativity. And then also with Tracy, they take him out after he scores a touchdown and put Scadaboo in, and they had Scadaboo's number, but I think Tracy was he was working well. I think they put him in too late. So I don't know. I think I would have let Tracy in there. I mean, listen, I got my angry run shirt I bought this week, impulse buy after the Scadaboo wave. So I mean, but
That's all. That's
and
all we got. Should have
yeah,
bought
well,
two.
yeah, well, I'll send you one in the mail. So I guess it was impulse
No,
buy,
that's very
but
nice.
yeah, but the McAtony, the two extra points. The fact remains, like, all right, he missed the one. Why'd you go for two on the second one? Like you're ahead, and not only that, every 2-point conversion, Denver converted. They didn't even stop him on that. So
McTominay is not he's not a battle tested kicker, and again, I look at it like this, right? You have him on the field, you have Banks on the field, and we've talked about this in prior weeks. At some point, it was going to hurt you. I said outside of Banks returning kicks, I don't want to see him on the field. So yeah, it's almost like it's obligatory because of where he was drafted, no matter what they say, that they're trying to put him on the field. Plus, they're not deep there. Then you have your other top pick, who's a healthy scratch, right? When you're short alignment, when I say short alignment, John Michael Schmitz was out. So now
yeah,
you have you have Evan Neal, a healthy scratch, right? So that goes into accountability where now you have a flaw in your roster construction, right? Your GM is still there, and again, there was numerous things that come back to the head coach. It's not good football, and to just touch upon what you said, these last few years have been brutal as Giant fans. Now you fast forward this year and you look at it, and I'm not even going to say that they should have won the Dallas game, right? But they went toe-to-toe offensively with Dak Prescott, who's having a phenomenal year. Dallas is having a tremendous year offensively, right? Then yesterday, you should have beat a very good team, right, at their place, and you had them 19-0. You were shutting them out, and you dropped that one. And that's what I think is the big disappointment, because I think league-wide, the expectations were very, very low. Vegas had them, I think, at 5.5 wins. And you win yesterday, and not even talking about the New Orleans game or the Dallas game, you're at 3 wins. And you're kind of in the thick of things, if you will, with somewhat hope, as slim as it realistically may be. But you're going down to Philly, where, beating them twice in 3 weeks, you could right the ship. And that's why I think this season is more frustrating than years past, because they are doing very, very well in areas that people had concerns. And one of them is you're starting centers out, right? And guess what? The offensive line wasn't the problem yesterday. The offensive line wasn't the problem in Dallas. And that's what I think makes it frustrating, that they actually should have won games against really good opponents. And guess what? Dallas is rolling up points week in and week out, and Dak looks great.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
We're still here at 1:30, and I've yet to hear somebody get fired. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Well, I guess the big move is I guess they'll bring Koo in from the practice squad, and I don't know if they do McEntany. I don't know if they're going to call Tom home and see if they can pull his work visa and send him back to Ireland. But I mean, I don't know. But but the thing is with the kid is like,
I'm not even gonna touch that.
Yeah, but with the kid, listen, I mean, he was a Rutgers, his local kid. I think he kicked well, but I mean, he wasn't even warming up on the sidelines. He was just sitting there with his hat on. But I mean, with 33 seconds left, they had to pass to Mims. Sutton had a catch over Banks, the spike, and that was it. Game over. So, and
they should have left him in. They should have left McTominay in no, they should have left him in Colorado, in the mountains.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there was a lot of talk about leaving Bowen in there, and that's the other thing. I was talking with our producer Dave Sturcio before we got on. It's like, how much does the head coach get involved with game time management at the end of these play callings? I mean, I'm sure it's going in his ear, but the pass, the interception. I mean, listen, rookie mistake. I guess you got to live with that, but I don't know. I think that 10 points up, you keep the clock moving. So I mean, that's
it's his show. It's his show.
Yeah, and the thing is, the only thing I think of is that John Mara is he's going through cancer treatment. So how much of a change is he going to make while he's not feeling 100%? How much of a change? So I don't think Bowen's going to go this week, just for the fact that I think that they'll see what he does against Philly. But if you look at the Philly game, Jalen Hurts was slinging it. He was slinging it to Devontae Smith and AJ Brown. So I mean, he was slinging it. So, but I don't know. But one thing I will say is that the Giants, they did prove, and one thing I did hear was that they can go anywhere and play with anybody this year in the NFL. I mean, that's a bad loss. They have had bad losses after all. But I could probably name 10 coaches in the NFL that would have won that game. And, Dable, I mean, I don't think he's going anywhere. And I don't think Joe Shane's going anywhere, just for the fact that you look at Dart. I mean, he looks like the real deal. He's giving everybody optimism, but I mean, that's as bad as losses as they come.
Listen, if you want to take a positive out, Dart is for real. They're trending offensively in the right direction. You really haven't heard too much scuttlebutt since Dart has been named the starter about the offensive line, pointedly when Andrew Thomas was back too as well, because that's a big big addition to the offensive line. But let me tell you though, here's the thing. I always say this, right? the Giants wasted, no matter what they want to say, right? You look at the history of New York sports, okay? I always felt the Knicks wasted a lot of Patrick Ewing's good years by not really getting him his, Batman, his Robin, right? And you look at Eli Manning, and I felt the Giants kind of wasted some of his years by not being able to assemble a solid core, around him. Now we're getting into the Yankees about Judge. Obviously Judge needs to win a World Series to be considered one of the greatest Yankees of all time. What worries me is Dart, Scatterboo, right? You're trending up. You're going in the right direction. The arrow's pointing up offensively. The question is Brian Dable the guy, that can take them to the promised land? And I think when you ask yourself that question at the end of the season, if there's any doubt, you have to move on ASAP, because the Giants are, there's been, and I just referenced it, Mattingly, there's a lot of times in New York sports where we think things are going to work themselves out, and before you know it, right, a guy's career is over. And I really, really, really don't want to have Dart and Dable handcuffed to each other, because I don't think that should be the case. Yes, Dable pushed to draft him. Shane made it happen. But at the end of the day, what you saw yesterday, right, is not good football. And yes, it did happen. Hopefully, I would think it would never happen again. But this is the Giants. And again, somebody has to answer for that. It's an NFL organization. You pissed away a game. The defensive coordinator is the absolute pits. He was hired by the head coach. So if nobody gets fired, this week, whatever, when is somebody going to get fired? So I think the next logical question is, if you're not going to get fired as a defensive coordinator after giving up 33 points in a quarter, the fourth quarter, right? So you're not going to get fired next week, right? You're not going to get fired the week after. So at the end of the year, right? And again, yesterday was more than just a defensive coordinator. At the end of the year, if you have any doubt with this coaching staff, right, a change to me has to be made ASAP, point blank ASAP, because I think after yesterday, okay, and outside of his first year, okay, there are a lot of questions that need to get answered about Brian Dable. Is he still the right man, for this job? And again, the owner being sick is unfortunate, okay? And as you and I both know, we're in profession that, God forbid somebody gets sick, you have to move on. The organization does move on. And, at some point, somebody has to make this decision, call the shots, if it's the owner's proxy, whatever. But, I just don't know, what the expectation is, for the coaching staff after surrendering a 33-point lead. And I'll reference this, okay? Probably before yesterday, the greatest loss in Giants regular season history was the Miracle at the Meadowlands. But what the Miracle at the Meadowlands did, besides embarrass, an organization and show the ineptitude and incompetence of the coaching staff, it sparked change. And the funny thing is, for grad school, I actually did a report. I did a midterm, my midterm project for a class. It was about creating change and events that impact change. And that incident, as bad as it was, okay, for the organization, it changed football, the victory formation, having a guy in the back, this way if the quarterback slips or whatever, the whole thing. But what that did was that changed the Giants for the better, because they really took a look inside or inward, right, inside the organization and said, wow, we're not cutting it. We got to go outside the organization, right, and we got to kind of clean house. So now, to me, before yesterday, that was the number one worst loss. Number two is the 49er Jim Fossil, Michael Strahan playoff game, pointing at the score. Terry Collins was on fire. It was 38-14. And the Giants wound up losing, and ultimately it came down to a bad snap and a bad long snapper. But what that did was the Giants were like, oh, we're going to keep Fossil. The team never, ever, ever was able to mentally recover from that loss going forward. And Fossil kind of, wallowed a little bit. They went 7-9, and then he got another year. And what I'm trying to say is that you have two examples of two very bad losses in Giant history. One, spark change, which was they got George Young, and George Young started dismantling the team and rebuilding. But then the other one, you kind of went status quo. Hey, we got a good team. Kerry Collins is rolling. We got Barber, we got Toomer, we got Hilliard, we got Shockey, who was just come. But they never psychologically recovered as a team under Fossil from that 49er loss. And you really can't have this lingering, going forward. You can't. You really can't. But I spit enough venom. The positive is you got a quarterback that, 4 games in, was able to keep his composure, keep the team together, and ultimately get his body in the end zone, right? And when he left the field, the Giants were winning the game. Point blank.
And not only that,
the Giants were winning the game.
But I mean, I think he showed you leadership too, because he was saying to the defense.
Oh, without a doubt.
And now stop him. So he's calling them. So funny you talk about those games. I just compiled a list of the 20 worst Giant losses, and by margin, dominated blowouts. So
the fact that we have a list that high is scary. But go ahead.
November 30th.
You could have stopped at 5, though.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll break it. So a lot of them were from like the 40s and 50s, but 1952, the Steelers beat them 56. That was the worst loss in franchise history. 7-63, 56%, 56-point differential.
Yeah, there was a few lopsided scores, but man.
But recent memory, number 3, I think you alluded to January 15, 1994. Actually, no, this was probably Reeves. The 44-3 loss to the 49ers.
That was the second round of the playoff. The Giants beat the Vikings that year. They won. Yeah. They won and they lost to a stat 49er team. Yeah.
Yeah. And then September 10th, 2023, worst loss in modern era loss at MetLife. That was against the Cowboys. September 10th, 2023. December 27th, 2015, Vikings 30-32 ugly late upset collapse against the Vikings.
Yeah.
Back December. November 12th, 2023, Cowboys again, blowout versus the arch rival at the Cowboys. And then October 17th, 2021 versus the Rams. Sean McVay crushed them 38-11. And then September 27th, 2020 versus the 49ers. They backed up. But the worst collapses and blown leads were December 5th, 2003 at the 49ers. This is the Jim Fossil one. Giants left 38-14 in the third, largest blown lead in team history up until yesterday. So what's another one? December 19th in 2010, that was a miracle in Meadowlands 2 with Deshaun Jackson walk-off punt. November 26th, 06, rookie Vince Young led the Titans to a 21-point deficit.
Yeah, Kiwanuka didn't wrap him. Yep.
Yeah. November 30th.
I love my man Kiwi.
Oh, yeah, but whatever. I mean, but they won the next year.
Actually, I remember had a meltdown.
Yeah.
He had to apologize to Kiwanuka after the game. He lost it on him.
And Eli's Giants against the Jags in 2014. 22-point lead blown was against the Parcells Patriots. That's December 21st, 1996. Yep. Of course, yesterday, against the Chargers in 1998, he had an overtime collapse against the Chargers. And the last one in our era was September 8th at the Cowboys again. 28-31 opening day heartbreak. I think I was there for that one. So I think it's one of the first games I went to against the Cowboys. 28-31-14. So they have a history of it. I mean, unfortunately, we're here, but I think there is some optimism looking towards the Eagles, and they're playing at Lincoln Financial. What do you take? And if you were John Marin right now and you had the controls, what would you do?
Today,
tomorrow, and in the season?
Today I would have fired the defensive coordinator.
And who would you elevate to be the defensive coordinator?
Again, you have a lot of new, if it was last year, the easy answer would have been Jerome Henderson. Obviously, he's not there. He was replaced by Jeff Burris. There's a few guys, but I just think that coming off yesterday's loss, losing the way you did, surrendering the points that you did in basically one quarter, the way you lost it, because again, Jimmy, here's the thing, right? Dart goes in, right, with a little less than 40 seconds, whatever. He scores. Jude misses the extra point. All right, it's 32-30, right? If they stop them, right, and the Giants win that game 32-30, nobody is talking about anything other than Dart remaining calm, cool, collective, poised, his leadership. The future is now. He's going to be the next coming, right? And all they had to do, even to that point, after surrendering, which would have been 30 points, okay, if they made a stop and they didn't kick that field goal and they made a stop, there's not a question. I think you can regroup as a unit. I think the players are more than frustrated because in the previous week, okay, name a game, okay, but they went to this guy before the Eagles game and was almost begging and pleading with him to be a little bit more aggressive, to blitz, so on and so forth. And then in the same sense of why the players came to you, you reverted back. I'd really love to be in a defensive meeting, today. I really would. And I think at some point, as the leader of the organization, you do have to send the message. I heard, do I think it has to be dramatic? No, somebody's got to be held accountable. This is not the NBA where, you show up in a night after, your third game in 5 nights, right? And you get smoked by 40 and, you don't show up and you're Mike Brown in a month from now. And, Brunson goes 3 of 17, right? You have 82 games, right? The NFL, you go once a week and each game is like no other. It's like no other sport. You get 1 week to do it. And what happened yesterday, I don't see how you cannot hold somebody responsible. And so there has to be a message sent because what do you do if you're the players right now? Hey, coach, listen, yeah, we fucked up yet again, yesterday, right? Could we have the meeting or could we have the talk that we had before the Eagles game? Why? Why do you have to have that talk twice? If Lawrence Taylor, and I know we don't have a Lawrence Taylor, if Carl Banks, Lawrence Taylor, Pepper Johnson ever went to Bill Belichick, and they have, by his own account, hey, coach, we're seeing it this way. Can we do this? Can we do that? And Bill would say, those players are very smart, and sure enough, they were right. And going forward, we did it that way. So where do you go from now with the relationship with the defense and their defensive coordinator? If you're on that front seven, or if you're on that any of those defensive meeting rooms, do you have confidence in this man?
Not in a big time, not in a big time spot.
That's the thing.
And I think that the big thing is you play to your strength, and they didn't do that at the end of the game.
Correct.
Rushing three people and having Carter
Correct.
and Lawrence, but the thing is, you think he lost that room? I mean, you think, and you talked about it about Hudson, not having him on the roster anymore. They haven't really made any abrupt moves. They basically just seem like they keep their head down and keep on moving forward, and the same result happens. Like they just keep on blowing these leads.
Which is why, the Hudson thing, again, if you remember that episode, I said Hudson should have been cut. I don't give a shit what his financial ramifications are. You have to make a statement, right? This is the NFL, right? Todd Bowles released the one Sanders kid in preseason, right? Because of his extracurriculars, right? And all the penalties he had, right? The Jets released a punt returner, right? And again, somebody has to be held accountable. I couldn't imagine, right? And everybody, and you referenced it, I think, when the show started, Burns coming off the field saying, how are we dropping 8? How are we doing this? And it's not like Burns came off the field and was ripping the coach apart. He's saying what everybody's thinking. And now now when he goes, when they have their meetings and tomorrow they're breaking down this film and they're making corrections, what does somebody stand up and say, why the hell are we dropping 8 guys again?
Yeah.
Again.
And you look at Burns. Burns has been a leader of the defense. I mean, he's
sacks yesterday. Great year.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's having an all-pro year. And then, listen, he's your leader. If you lose him, a lot of people are going to fall in line after that, because it's like, where do you go from here? So, I don't know. And then what you're getting out of East Rutherford is not really too much. So, but if you're John Mara, would you start taking, you start lopping heads off then?
I just think, Jimmy, to answer your question, I think for today and for the immediate future, you make a change. Okay, you're not going anywhere this year, and I think at some point you have to maintain the culture that people are going to get held accountable before the end of the year. There's an accountability here that we have a standard as an organization. And ultimately, I think he should have made that change. So, they should have made that change today. That kind of sets the tone, I think, for the rest of the year. And then for the rest of the year, you're evaluating, as you always do, unfortunately, too often, right? If your GM is still the right man for the job, and then your GM is evaluating, if this coaching staff, if your pieces, if the pieces are there to move forward. Now, let's not forget, all right, yes, the offensive coordinator has been there. The defensive coordinator, this is another year with him. But they brought in, they got rid of the secondaries coach last year. They made some tweaks already on the coaching staff. So you already used your mulligan in that regard, right? Because usually what's the first sign of a head coach being in trouble? He makes adjustments, he makes changes. And
they did it last year too.
They did that.
They did it last year too when they pulled Kafka from the game call, and they had Dable do it. So they did it. So we've been here before, but I think what difference in this year and last year is, like, I think last year we were like lost at sea. At least now they have a quarterback. They're in these games, and I think the overall it's been better. It's just the game time management and just the how to finish a game. They just haven't been there. So, I don't know who you're going to point the finger at, but anything else, when you lose, everybody's going to start to point the finger at somebody. So, but
the only thing good that came out of the weekend, is the Red Bull season is over.
Yeah, and then the New York football, the Smurfs might have home field advantage.
The Smurfs are playing. They're playing the best out of 3. They have game 2 is at Yankee Stadium, so at least somebody will be using Yankee Stadium for the extended postseason run. So,
all right.
And I like how you did reference the Smurfs.
Yeah. Well, what's your prediction for this Sunday?
I'm expecting them offensively to play well. Defensively, it'll be interesting to see how he's able to rally them after what happened.
Yeah. Well, I think the players got to rally. I think that they realize, what, and it depends on Holland and Debo's injuries too. If they go down, it's going to be
with no question on that, Jimmy. But again, you hit the nail on the head, right? You were down with them, so maybe we should have brought some pressure.
Yeah.
That's
but I mean, they have been, we said on the show, they have been using the tight end. Now they have been utilizing them the last couple of games. So between Johnson and Bellinger, had, he had a touchdown yesterday. He had, I think, 85 yards. So, I mean, but I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, we're going to keep on watching no matter what happens, but it always could be worse. I mean, you could be a Cleveland Browns fan who never been to a
Hold
Super
on.
Bowl.
After yesterday, you could be a Jets fan.
Yeah, well, I was going to get to that. I was just leading up to that, but the Jets, I don't know. That's a whole other show. I don't know.
Yep.
That's a whole other show. But with that, Jerry, I'll let you take it out. But thanks for Dave Sturcio for producing this episode, Chop Sports Media, and of course,
No, Dave was in a good mood today, rightfully so.
Oh yeah, he was.
He got his Dak Prescott Halloween costume already, so he's good.
Yeah, CeeDee Lamb's back, and so. But with that, Jerry, I'll let you take this episode 76 out.
76 for our man Jumbo Elliott. It's in the books. Thank you for joining us. This was definitely one of our juicier episodes, if you will. A lot of emotion in this episode. Brutal Giant loss. Tune in next week. We will be breaking down the Giants after their visit to the Link. Giants at Philly this week. We'll see what happens defensively, and that'll be episode 77, which we will have some nice prospects to choose from there, Jimmy, for episode 77.
77. I haven't thought that far ahead. I mean, I'm still.
I like Eric Dorsey, but
yeah,
we'll see. Anyway, thanks for joining us, everybody. For Jimmy, I'm Jerry. We'll catch you next time. Have a great week, and we will be here next week. Dave, thank you. And hopefully the G-Men can right the ship. We'll see everybody in a week from now. Take care. Have a great day.
Go Woodridge soccer, right?
That's it, baby. Let's go. 2 games this week.